Hi, I'm Chris McBrien, a Gen-Xer, and the pop culture from my generation is awesome.
And I'm Yancy Eaton, a Millennial, and the pop culture from my generation is dope.
Episode 19, Star Wars, The Force Awakens. Hey, Chris McBrien here. It's Pop Goes Your World. Yancy Eaton along with me as always. Yancy, what's going on in the world of pop for you this week, my friend?
Man, I feel like I've been in a complete hole, Chris. We were just talking off air about how, this is the holiday season for me. A lot of my listeners know this. I say this all the time. I'm a manager for a really large food department, a large retailer. So I'm in charge of, the Starbucks and the grocery and dry grocery and produce and meat and deli. And it's just a lot. And, obviously we've been super busy. We're recording this right now on a Wednesday, which is the day before Thanksgiving in America. You guys celebrated a couple weeks ago in Canada. And I really haven't got a chance to, to delve into anything new, to listen to much music, to, just kind of branch out like I always like to do. I like to have something new for the show, and I just haven't been able to do it. So I'm hoping, these next couple weeks are going to be really tough, but after that I can kind of just, jump back in and get into my normal process of kind of, seeing what's out there and stuff. There's a lot of really awesome albums that are supposed to be coming out of some of my favorite groups. So I'm looking forward to that. But right now I'm just kind of treading water, just trying to get through this because November is an especially tough month for me. But what's new for you in old Canada?
Oh, not a whole lot. Well, one thing I was going to mention was, what you need to do when you have some free time is, to watch some of those movies I've been telling you about. Make sure that you go back and watch some of those movies like Caddyshack and stuff that we talked about earlier, and we'll have to check in on all that.
I do have a list.
So one thing that I did was recently I went to see, I don't get out to the movies very much. I got two young kids, so when I get out to the movies, I'm usually going to see a cartoon or something like that, right? But we were able to get out recently, and I went to see the movie The Girl on the Train. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it, but my wife wants to see it really bad.
I was a little disappointed. I'm not going to lie. I thought the performances in it were better than the sum of its parts. I didn't think the film was all that great. I thought Haley Bennett, she was in it. She was fantastic. Outstanding. She was good. Emily Blunt was pretty good too. I thought the ex-husband in it was miscast. I don't think he had the acting chops to pull off that role. I don't know. That's just me being picky. But I went to see it because it had a lot of hype, and I was like, oh, I got to go see this movie, right? And we're going to get a chance to get out tonight. This is the movie we got to go see. So I was a little bit disappointed, but it's neither here nor there. Anyway,
so what did your two young sons think of it?
They did. Oh God, we didn't take that.
I know.
Exactly. We were able to get a babysitter. We don't get a babysitter very often. But another thing that we're doing is this weekend we are getting a friend to come over and look after the kids because we're going to go down to Toronto and we're going to watch Rick Emmett in concert. So Rick Emmett, if you don't know, do you know who Rick Emmett is or no? Probably
I don't know. I've never
heard that. He's a guitar player. He was a guitar player for Triumph. So Triumph is a Canadian progressive rock band from the late 70s and the early 80s, and I just loved them. I thought they were fantastic, and they were one of my favorite bands when I was a kid. And he was one of the people that inspired me to pick up a guitar in the first place because he was just so good at it. So what he's done now is he's sort of reformed a new band, but it looks like it promises to be a lot of the old Triumph songs. So I'm really looking forward to that. So that was what I got for my birthday this year. I asked my wife for a neck full of gold, and instead I got a concert to Rick Emmett, which is still good, and I'm going to take it. So
nice consolation prize.
It works out. Still wish I had a neck full of gold, but I'll work on it for Christmas. Do me a favor. You can contact my wife and tell her Chris needs a neck full of gold. That would be really, really great. In the meantime, you ready to get started on this week's topic?
Yes, let's do it.
All right, let's go. It's a good one. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh.
My parents watched this with me, and they hated it, like a lot of movies that I've already mentioned on the show.
Breakin' 2, Electric Boogaloo.
Man, Eddie Murphy did some of the best impressions I've ever heard.
Shabadoo and Boogaloo Shrimp.
Chris.
I've rewatched it as an adult. I still like it.
This brassiere is killing me, and this garter belt is riding up my ass.
Oh, my.
What could possibly go wrong?
My parents pieced out halfway through it.
I'm good, thanks.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, as I mentioned on the top, it is Star Wars The Force Awakens. I figured since it's been a year since this movie came out, it was, appropriate timing for us to kind of go back, to take a real good look at it. Because the thing is, when it first came out, with all the hype and everything surrounding it, and everyone was so excited about a new Star Wars movie, I think it would be pretty tough to get an objective look one way or the other at the movie. But now that we've had a year to kind of sit back and let it sink in, watch it a couple more times or whatever, and kind of figure it all out, I think it's a little bit better opportunity for us to kind of sit down and talk about it. Now, did you see it when it first came out in the theater? Like, were you there on opening night, Yancy? It would have been December the 18th of 2018.
Yeah, I didn't get to go out opening night, but I went I think 2 or 3 days later. And I watched this movie in theaters 4 times too, by the way. But I didn't go that same night, which that just sounds like a nightmare to me, because you have all the people dressing up, and there's tons of kids, and people neck to neck. I like going whenever it's just died down a little bit. Movies aren't nearly as big as they used to be. You don't see theaters completely packed for weeks. So I'll wait a couple of days, and then we'll go to where I can put my feet up in front of me and stuff like that. But yeah, I went and seen it maybe 2 or 3 days after it initially released.
One thing that happened here in Canada was actually, I don't know if you're aware of this, in Canada it opened up a day earlier than it opened up in the United States. So it opened in the States December the 18th, and it opened up here in Canada on the 17th. It was a Thursday. And so my son and I went. My son's 7, and I've introduced him to the original trilogy. I don't let him watch the prequels because they don't exist. And but we watched the original trilogy. We watched the original trilogy together. And he loved the original trilogy. So we went and we got in line and we waited for it. It was great. And then I ended up bumping into a buddy of mine, the buddy that I went to Fan Expo with. I didn't even know he was at the theater. It was great. So we went in. He's got 2 young kids. We all were sitting there. It was just great. So it was really great to be a part of the sort of that opening night thing. But so I guess we'll start off with the question that I want to ask Yancy, because I think your take on Star Wars is, and we talked about this on a previous show, your take on Star Wars is a little bit different than mine. Star Wars just sort of as a whole, when I mentioned that. So what did you think of the movie?
Wow, that's such an open-ended question.
I love open-ended questions.
Okay, overall, I'll say this: I'm the type of person where I can be critical of something and also still really enjoy it.
Of course.
So I think this movie has some problems to it, but overall, I really, really enjoyed the hell out of it.
Okay, I'm going to tell you something. I hope this doesn't surprise you or anyone else out there. I liked this movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll just say that I liked it. I didn't love it. And this is coming from somebody who absolutely, as you know, loves the original trilogy. I love it to death. That is just, I don't know, it's off the charts. To me, that's just the ultimate pop culture experience for me, is the original Star Wars trilogy, which I absolutely love, as I mentioned. But this one I liked. I liked it a lot. It was fun to be in the theater, to see it. It was a fun ride. And for lots of things I'm sure we're going to get into tonight, there was just a few things about it that I just didn't love. It's so hard. Okay, so first of all, for me, it looks amazing. Visually, the movie's outstanding. But I know this is going to sound crazy, and you're going to think I'm nuts. As visually amazing as it looks, it still doesn't look like Star Wars to me. Does that make any sense to you? To me, okay, so let me put this in perspective. The original trilogy is what it is. I love that world, right? The prequels to me don't look like Star Wars. That's one of the reasons why I don't like them. To me, it doesn't look like Star Wars. It looks like a cartoon, for crying out loud, those movies. It's just bizarre. And the worlds and the sets, it's just all CG, the whole friggin' thing, right? It's all digital. But even this one, where this one was more of a throwback to, there was still a lot of CGI in it, but there was a bit more of a throwback to, more costumes and sets, and reality to it that way, because that's one of the things that made the original trilogy so great, right? Was the fact that the world looked lived in and it looked dirty. It was like you could see the rivets and the oil on the Millennium Falcon. It was a real world. People lived there. It was great. Whereas the prequels were all kind of shiny and bright and everything was digital and just looked like crap, right? So this one, The Force Awakens, was more of a throwback to the original, but it's still, for me, it just didn't feel like Star Wars. You know what it felt? And I guess I know because J.J. Abrams, maybe. It felt more like a reboot than it did an actual continuation of the story. Does that make sense?
Yes, 100%. That's actually the main point that I was going to make, where, like I said, I love the movie. I think that Daisy Ridley and John Boyega are absolutely phenomenal. all the casting I have zero problems with. The acting is phenomenal. There's tons of chemistry. Like you said, from a cinematography standpoint, it's absolutely incredible. But there are so many elements, especially just with like the plot and, you know, just how the film is, you know, sequenced and stuff like that, where there are literally, you know, exact shots and stuff like that are pulled from the original trilogy. Like, there are so many different elements to it that we have seen verbatim, you know, in the original trilogy. So it's like, I kind of grapple with this back and forth, because it was like, was J.J. Abrams just making like a almost like a tribute movie, which it kind of felt like at some parts, or was this kind of like a, hey, let's bring back the old Star Wars fans who grew up with this and were basically like bastardized by, you know, episodes 1 through 3, and like, let's reintroduce them to the franchise and kind of show them like, hey, let's reestablish this franchise as something that you knew and loved, and then now once we've done this, we can kind of push the thing forward. And obviously, you know, let me go ahead and say this right now, you know, spoilers and stuff like that. Like, Han dies, guys. Sorry to break it to you, but, you know, Han Solo does die in this film. And a lot of people were really upset by that. But I think that was kind of like the necessary it was a necessary act, basically, to say like, hey, listen, you know, like, I understand like this whole film feels very familiar to you guys, but we kind of have to let go of Han, just because like his personality and like his gravitas in this film is so huge that he drives everything that goes on in this movie. So in order for the franchise to kind of progress and for the story to actually build on The Force Awakens, you kind of had to part ways with Han just so that it could move forward. You see what I'm saying? I couldn't imagine there being 2 more films in the new trilogy with Han Solo there in the forefront. He's just too big of a personality, and he would just, you know, he would demand so much of the attention that I just don't think it was possible. But like I said, though, I think it was intentional. I think it was trying to recaptivate an entire generation of people who were kind of like left out in the cold with episodes 1 through 3, and that's why you've seen so many of the familiar cuts and, you know, same action sequences, and, you know, even like the lightsaber sequences, or like whenever the X-Wing fighters are coming up, and, you know, all those things felt so familiar. It was like just like a nostalgia overload, but I do think it was by design.
So the Han dying thing, yeah, obviously we're not spoiling a movie that is the highest grossing film of all time. I'm sorry if you haven't seen it by now. You know, too bad, right? But the thing is, interestingly enough, see, if you want to go back to the original trilogy, and, you know, this is trivia that everyone's aware of, I'm sure, is that Harrison Ford wanted Han to die in the second film. So he wanted him to die in Empire, because, and so did Lawrence Kasdan, the screenwriter. He felt it was important to. He felt one of those 3 characters had to go, because, you know, in linear storytelling, you know how it works, right? It's boy meets girl, boy loses girl, boy gets girl back. That's the formula for any movie. And in the second act, everything goes to crap, right? Boy loses girl. So everything goes to crap in the second act. And they wanted one of the characters to die, and Harrison Ford was like, it has to be Han Solo. You know, I mean, he's the only one that has no parents or anything. He's just like kind of a free spirit. He's the one that needs to go. You know, there's no ties there, you know, for holding him back. And Lucas would have nothing to do with it. He was like, no, there's no way I'm killing off that character. I'm not killing off any one of the 3. Forget it. So the kind of compromise that they came to was, okay, well, let's freeze him in carbonite. Let's at least do that, because I think, you know, Harrison didn't even want to come back for the third one. And then when he agreed to come back for the third film, even then he was fighting in the third film. Okay, he has to die. Han has to die. Maybe in the Battle of Endor, when they're trying to knock out the tractor beam and all that kind of stuff, like, maybe that's where he has to die somewhere, and the movie needs to end with him dying. And nope, Lucas would have none of it. And so I think Lucas must have been sitting back watching this movie when it came out and go, well, Harrison got his wish, you know, and so did Kasdan, because that was what those guys wanted the whole time. To come out and do it in the first film of the next trilogy, it doesn't happen in the second act, right? So it's more interesting, and like you said, I think it was maybe for the shock value of it, because the rest of the film is so familiar. Like you said, it is a bit of an homage to the original Star Wars film, almost, you know, almost frame by frame,
right?
Really, you know,
it is wild.
You know, there's a droid in the desert with some, you know, some mystery inside of him and this data, and the bad guys are chasing him through the desert and killing people in their way, and then they got to get away and all this, and then they, you know, there's a big Death Star that, of course, has a trench, and of course it has a weakness. I don't know what it is with these guys building these Death Stars, and there's always a weakness that they can fly in the middle of it and blow it up, and then they fly away. Like, yeah, so I mean, it's more than an homage. It's more of a reboot. And I don't know, but to me, it's still... Okay, the original trilogy for me is a masterclass in film. Okay, because it's got action, pace, plot, but it has great characters to motivate the storytelling. And the prequels, obviously, they just collapsed under their own weight. You know, the plot points are explained away by like midichlorians and trade disputes and all that crap. I think Lucas's skill as a director in the first film was on full display. Okay, by the time he got around to making the prequels, you know, I think it was pretty clear to everybody. It was pretty apparent that he had not been in the director's chair for over 20 years, you know. But like I said, The Force Awakens, it feels a bit more like a reboot than a continuation of the story. That's for me.
Let me ask you a question about this. Okay, so we both kind of like broke it down and stuff like that. We like the film or whatever, but like you said, it does feel eerily familiar, and that whether or not that was by design, let's leave that up for interpretation for the listeners.
I'm just going to jump in. I think it had to be because of the prequels. Because the prequels were such a disconnect from the original trilogy, and that was one of the big complaints a lot of people had, like myself included. That's not Star Wars. It doesn't feel like Star Wars. It doesn't look like Star Wars. What the hell is that? You know? And the idea of, just to tie back something you said before about the acting, the original trilogy, what made it so good was that they brought in great actors. They brought in these people that, you know, he wanted unknowns for the three leads, which what he got, but even the only sort of well-known actor that he brought in was Sir Alec Guinness, and he was by the way the only person ever, or the only actor ever in any Star Wars film to be nominated for an Oscar. He was nominated for Best Supporting Actor in '77. So they brought in great actors. The prequels didn't do that. Instead, let's bring in big names. Let's bring in Samuel L. Jackson and Liam Neeson, and we'll bring in Ewan McGregor. What's going on? Like it was, and so they kind of forego a lot of the great acting for the digital experience. So because of that disconnect, I think Abrams had to come in and go back to that, like not just an homage to the original film, but the idea of bringing in a bunch of unknowns that are really good actors. I agree with you. For the most part, I thought Daisy Ridley was incredible. She was engaging in that film as an actress. Boyega not quite as much. Even still, a lot of the reactions kind of just shocked and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, it's nitpicking, but anyway. So I agree with you that he had to kind of go back and do that because of the prequel. So sorry, go ahead.
So would you have been more upset had he not basically like taken the leap of faith and did kill off Han Solo? So say like the entire movie is exactly the same, except at the very end, whenever Han is meeting with Kylo Ren, he doesn't kill Han. He, something happens, he escapes or anything like that, and that's how the movie ended. Would you have been more pissed off, or would it? You see what I'm saying? Like, I almost feel like all of that stuff is acceptable because, like I said, he did give us like a huge emotional moment where he does kill off Han Solo, and then now the franchise, I can rest assured that the next two franchises aren't going to be the exact same thing as the original two. You see what I'm saying? So like I feel confident that the franchise is going to take a completely different path, but do you feel that same way? Like the Han Solo was kind of like I know that this was familiar, but like, this is us pushing forward. Do you feel like that?
I would not have been surprised if Harrison Ford would have said, I'll come back and do the movie on one condition. You kill him off. I wouldn't be surprised.
Isn't that really wild, though? Like, considering, obviously actors love to act. They love getting big parts. You hear of all these people that want cameos and stuff like that. Like, even like Daniel Craig was like a stormtrooper in this movie. Like, everybody wants to be in Star Wars. Like, even Samuel L. Jackson, like when he was Mace Windu in Episode 1, like, he begged to be in Star Wars. You know what I mean? Isn't that so unusual? Like, even with Harrison Ford, like back in the 70s, at the height of like this franchise just completely blowing up, like he had the foresight to be like, hey, listen, like, I'm willing to sacrifice like my own personal gain and exposure and money to not be in this film because I think it's good for the storyline. Like, that is so rare. I can't think of an instance where like an actor would like volunteer that of himself. You see what I'm saying? Yeah.
And if you go back to the original trilogy too, he was kind of like, he was the breakout star of the first movie. You know what I mean? And he kind of looked at it, and he was in an interesting position too because the other two kind of got typecast. Let's be honest. I mean, Mark Hamill had to go into voice work, to kind of sustain his career because he was so typecast in that role of Luke Skywalker. And same thing with Carrie Fisher for the most part. But Harrison Ford was able to kind of go, okay, now I can go to it. Now I can start acting. I can start really doing some cool roles. And I think that was where he wanted to go, and as a result felt it necessary to kind of break ties from that character, and that maybe that was some of the motivation he had to kill him off early on as well, because he wanted to go and do different stuff. So maybe that was part of the motivating factor too of why he didn't want to come back, or why we wanted to kill him off and not be part of it so much for the story, but also maybe just for personally, just to kind of put some distance between himself and that character. I don't know. What do you think of that?
I mean, I guess I do buy that. It's just, like I said, like if I if I were an actor and I were thrust into literally, I mean, I guess at the time he couldn't have possibly foreseen like the, how much staying power that franchise would have had, 30 and 40 years later. But like, even still, like, it's just, it's incredible that, that he would just volunteer that of himself. But I mean, that's slim pickings. I want to jump in really quick and I want to bring up something. It's slightly related to this, but I read something about this while doing research for the show, and I want to get your take on it.
Sure.
Carrie Fisher actually came out with she wrote like a book or like a memoir or something like that, basically talking about how she actually had an affair with Han Solo. With
Harrison Ford. Yeah, they did in the first film. That's right.
Isn't that wild? Like, he was married and had 2 kids and everything. Do you think that like plays into the part of like them having like all this chemistry and stuff like that, or like am I just like grasping at straws that aren't there?
Well, I don't know. We've talked before on shows. It's so funny because on-screen chemistry does not always translate off-screen. Sometimes it as a result of off-screen chemistry, but a lot of times that's not even the case. The example that I've given on a previous podcast, the one that always stands out to me, is a movie from, I think it was 85, An Officer and a Gentleman, and it was with Richard Gere and Deborah Winger, and they had incredible on-screen chemistry, but off-screen they hated the hell out of each other. Hated each other. So sometimes that on-screen chemistry is not always, doesn't always happen off-screen, and then you get other situations where, couples are married, and they're in a film together and they have zero chemistry.
It's just flat, yeah.
Yeah, the one that jumps out to me is Eyes Wide Shut with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman. They're married. And
that movie's so bad.
The movie's terrible, but their on-screen chemistry was horrid. Like, terrible on-screen chemistry. So I don't know. That's the way I would say that. Like, I don't know if it always translates. But yeah, no, I did know. I remember hearing about that. But then I heard about that recently too. That she came out in her memoirs and said that she's done this. She said some very interesting things in her memoirs over the years. They've been quite famous. So, quick question for you then. Talking about this movie, and again, just going to go on the record as we call it Episode 7. Don't forget. I don't even call the original films. What do they call them? Episode 4, 5, and 6? No, I call them Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. That's what they're known as to me. But I'm just a stickler that way. So, if you had to rank the Star Wars movies, where does The Force Awakens fit into the group for you?
Honestly, I think this is kind of like a slow pitch. This is a really easy question. It's not as good as the first 3, and it's way better than episodes 1, 2, and 3. So, I mean, I would put it firmly in 4th out of the 7 films. I think that's pretty obvious.
So, how would you rank the original trilogy and then this? Just out of curiosity.
I think
you said before Empire was first, right?
Yep, Empire, Return of the Jedi, A New Hope. Then
it's called Star Wars. It's called Star Wars. It's not called.
Okay, fair enough. fair enough.
Sorry, I'm putting my Gen X foot down on this one.
Yeah, then I would probably go Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith. No, I don't know. The newest 3 episodes, 1 through 3, are just so freaking bad.
Who cares about the prequels? So for you, it's Empire Strikes Back, it's Return of the Jedi, and then Star Wars, and then the Force Awakens, correct?
Yeah. Okay, that's right.
I'm gonna go in order. For me, it's Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Jedi, and then the Force Awakens.
Okay.
I got to go with Star Wars as number 1, just because it was the original, it was the first one, it was the magic, it was all that kind of stuff. Although I still will contend that The Empire Strikes Back is the greatest science fiction film of all time, because if you look at it just science fiction for what it is, you cannot beat a planet made of entirely covered in snow, another planet that's an entire swamp planet. You've got a city in the clouds. You've got all these the AT-ATs, not AT-ATs.
The AT-ATs.
Yeah, exactly. You got the AT-ATs. There's so many things I frozen in carbonite. There's just so many science fiction elements in that film. It's just off the charts. But I would still go Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, Jedi, and then The Force Awakens. That would be for me. There was another thing that I noticed in this film, and we all noticed in this film, there's a lot of humor. They brought a lot of humor back into this film. Yes. And how did you feel about that? Did you feel it was overdone, just right, not enough? I mean, what were your thoughts? Because the original trilogy did have some humor injected into it. The prequels had none. They tried with Jar Jar, and Lucas does not understand. But that's one thing, Lucas never got the humor. He never even a lot of the humor that was injected in the original trilogy was done so through improvisation and things like that Lucas didn't even understand. He just didn't get it. Like we had talked before when we were talking about the original trilogy, your favorite line of "I love you" and "I know." Was obviously, Harrison Ford kind of came up with that line. He pitched it to Kershner before they did it. He got his approval. He did it on set, and they went with it. They left it in. Lucas was like, I don't get it. Why is that funny? Why would people laugh at that? Not understanding that in the moment, that was a very, there's a lot of gravitas in that moment. The guy's about to get frozen. He could die, this is the main character. So I think the audience needed that lighthearted line. That line just was perfect, right? But Lucas never really connected with comedy, I guess you could say. But in this movie, there was quite a bit of comedy in it. Quite a bit of humor, in it. And so how do you feel about that?
Whenever I watch it in theaters, like I said, I waited a couple days, but there was still, it was near capacity. Say the theater was maybe 90% full, and there were probably 7 or 8 times where the entire theater was just like exploding with laughter. Like most notably whenever Finn is talking to, the droid and, BB-8, and he basically like gives him like the thumbs up, and like, the BB-8 flicks out his little like butane looking lighter and gives him the thumbs up. Yeah. Like people were literally like dying like for like 5 minutes, like they couldn't stop laughing. That almost felt like a little, I don't know, a little campy, almost like they were kind of like pandering to like, they know that like there were kids in the audience, but like I'll admit, like I still laughed. But like I could have done without it being there. But I love how it's not like punchline, like zinger, like it's like if you just listen to like the back and forth between different characters and stuff, like I thought it was just like it was perfectly put in there. Like it kept certain parts light when they were supposed to be light, but like you said with Han, like he's literally about to be frozen in carbonite, and then he throws a joke. Like it kind of needed it there, but there were never instances in this film where like they added in humor and I felt like it was kind of like forced or anything like that. Like I thought it was really well done. I will say that like we haven't mentioned Walter Isaac at all. I thought his character was so incredibly awesome and charismatic, and like I wanted so much more from him. I'm hoping in the future films like they use him more, because like he was one of those implementers of humor, like, but it was like super subtle, and like it kind of like he's like the new Han Solo basically, where like it's not him trying to be funny, it's literally like this is who this guy is. Like he's literally like staring at like the face of death, and like he's making jokes about it, you know what I mean? Like whenever he's being interrogated by Kylo Ren, and Kylo Ren's trying to extract information from him using the Force and stuff, like he's basically just like, whatever, dude, like I'm the new Han Solo, like I don't care.
I think that was the scene when he's like, well, so who talks now? Do you talk? Do I talk? How does that work?
Yeah, it's just like really subtle back and forth. I love that.
I don't know, I didn't love that as much, because to me, you're right, it was in the face of danger. It seemed like it was kind of a throwaway line. Like it was almost like, I don't know, it was very obvious it was in there for humor, and he was trying to play it for humor, whereas Han Solo's original line of "I know," there wasn't an inkling in his voice that he was playing that for humor. It was a deadpan line that just spoke volumes about his character and their relationship to me. I thought but I will agree with you, Walter Isaac was very good. I liked the way he handled the role. I thought he brought a different element to the movie, which was needed. I just felt it went a little bit too far with that scene with Kylo Ren. That's my personal opinion. But I don't know. I definitely was happy to see some humor injected back into the movie. I think it was a little bit too much in places. I definitely like to see a little bit, especially after the prequels, because again, Jar Jar trying to eat an apple with his tongue, and the guy grabs the tongue and all that crap. It's just, this is not funny. Just get rid of this. Just end it. You know what I mean? Whereas at least here it was more sort of story driven, for lack of a better term, just kind of like what you alluded to. So for that reason, I liked it. But overall, I felt it might have been just a little too much. I don't know. It's so hard. Here's the thing. For me, it's like there's a world that's created with the original trilogy for me, and I don't want to say that's just that I'm nostalgic, because I'm totally nostalgic, and we all know it. I mean, that's what I am. I'm a Gen-Xer who is nostalgic for the past, but there's something about that world. When I watch those original trilogy movies, it's a fun place, and it's a world. It's complete escapism. Like I can just get lost in that world. In the world that's created in the prequels, to me, is non-existent. As much as I enjoyed The Force Awakens, and as much as I thought it was really fun to watch, I didn't get lost in the world. And I think, to me, that's where I just don't love it. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, that is fair. Man, I know we're like already up against time, but like I just want to like throw out a couple things like really quickly.
Sure, of course.
One, Nyong'o is really like one of the most beautiful women I've ever seen in my entire life. She's an amazingly talented actress. You know, she like burst onto the scene. She won all these awards and everything like that. And whenever I heard that she was cast for this movie, I was super excited because like I love her as an actress, right? Mm-hmm. And what do? They make her character completely CGI and like very like literally the most beautiful woman I have ever seen in my entire life. Lupita Nyong'o is like just beautiful and stunning. That part was really weird. What did you think about?
And she can act too, by the way. She's an amazing
she can also
actress.
act too.
Exactly.
I don't mean to denigrate her just as like physically attractive.
Exactly.
She's an incredible actress.
I agree. She's beautiful. She's talented. Oh, she's amazing, right?
And what do you think about how I don't know if you're like me, but like I was constantly looking at, YouTube videos where like they would dissect frame by frame all the trailers and fan theories and everything like that. Like I was really invested in this months before the movie came out. So if you looked on all the promotional posters, they would always show, all the main characters and stuff like that, but they would show Finn holding a lightsaber and they would show Rey holding like her staff, like almost like a katana looking weapon. You know what I mean? And they were basically trying to lead us to believe that Finn was the one who was force sensitive and that he was going to be kind of like the Jedi in this role. But, obviously once we watched the movie, it's completely flipped. Like, what did you think about that? Like, did you go into it ahead of time thinking, that Boyega's character was basically going to be force sensitive, or how did you grapple with that when you were watching?
I will tell you how I went into it. I try not to think about it too much, but this is the way that I went into it. Okay, looking at the trailers and looking at the poster especially, I went into it with thinking one thing: look at the poster. Where's Luke Skywalker?
Right.
That's the thing. Where's Luke? Where's Luke? Why isn't Luke in there? Because you heard all the rumors that the original 3 were coming back into this film. So you knew that Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher and Mark Hamill were all going to be in this movie. So why is Luke not on the poster? That's all I was wrestling with. Why is he not there? What's going on? This is interesting. Is he the bad guy? Does he turn? Is he going to be the bad guy in this one? And that's what the story is about? I didn't know what to expect. So that's what I was going in expecting, that Luke Skywalker was going to be Kylo Ren.
Man, he was literally in the film for 15 seconds and zero dialogue.
Not a single line. Yeah, in the end, which was okay. I was fine with it. I was fine with the way that it all played out. I was cool with that. But that's what I went into. So I didn't. The other thing too is, and this is going to sound really, really crazy to a lot of people, I have never been huge, and maybe this is why I didn't like the prequels either. Well, there's lots of reasons not to like them. I was never really huge on all the mythology. Like, sir, there were some people like, oh, it's the mythology that I just love. I was never about that, because to me neither. The idea of the Force was at its best when it was simplistic.
It was the practicality of it. The fact that like it could literally be in existence now. Like that's what I know I'm cutting over you, but like that's what pissed me off about like the new, the episodes 1 through 3 mm-hmm. was it went from being like the Force is everything all around us to the Force is literally like something that's in your blood.
Yeah.
And then they basically doubled back, and J.J. Abrams is trying to fix all of that, because like whenever Lupita's character, I can't even remember the name,
Maz
Kanata, or whatever her name is, whenever she's talking, she basically is saying, she's not force sensitive. She's not, a Jedi or anything like that. But like she talks about how like, oh, the Force is all around you. So it's like they're basically trying to like reshape our mind into thinking like, oh, the Force is like something natural. It's almost like, it's like this like, Mother Nature type thing. Like they've literally had to like switch all of the undoing. They're having to undo all of the, misconceptions of the Force that Lucas put in, with episodes 1, 2, and 3. Like, so like he's literally having to backtrack. Like that's why I said like I keep coming back to this, but like this whole film is literally just trying to reestablish the franchise and like fix 3 whole movies worth of screwing it up.
That's a really good point, and I'd just like to close on that point, because that's a great point that you made, and I was hoping we could bring it back to that. Is think about the pressure that was on J.J. Abrams in directing this film. Mm-hmm. He is not only trying to carry on the magical world of the original trilogy, he also has to undo all of the damage done by the prequels. That's a hell of a lot of pressure on a director on any film. So no matter what happens, there's going to be some disappointment with it in some way, because that is a lot of pressure to carry in. And under the circumstances, I'd say he did one hell of a job.
I agree. I want to see what goes on in episodes, the next 2 or 3 of this trilogy and stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure if he's completely directing the other ones by himself. I know that they're bringing on other people, but I'm definitely excited to see like where this franchise goes. I mean, this is just this is just the beginning for this, and they're just going to keep pushing forward. And obviously, we have a new Star Wars movie coming out really soon too, which is a different storyline, but the same universe and stuff. So obviously, we're going to talk about that too. But I did like this film. I don't want people to think I didn't like it. It has its problems, but altogether, like a very good film, and I'm really excited to be talking about Star Wars films.
Yeah,
again.
oh yeah, me too. And don't come away from this with the wrong impression that I didn't like the film. I did like the film. I just didn't love it. That's the one takeaway I want to have from this movie is I like this movie a lot. And like I say, there's a lot of pressure on this movie coming in. I think he did a hell of a job on it. So I liked it. I liked it a lot, but I didn't love it. And the original trilogy, I absolutely love. It's something I hold dear to me in a pop culture sense and just in a personal sense. I love the original trilogy. All right, let's have some
fun with Yancy.
Okay, I'm going to start you off easy this week. Okay, Yancy? Really easy question. Okay,
You say that every time, and then I get ghosted on like three questions.
No, man, these are easy, man. Multiple choice question, okay? On the planet Jakku. Mm-hmm. Where does Rey live? A, in a tent. B, in the remains of a Star Destroyer. C, in a TIE fighter. Or D, in the remains of an AT-AT.
D.
Yes, and it is an AT-AT, by the way, not an AT-AT, as we know.
An AT-AT, yeah.
Well, Sir, so I'm going to call him Sir, even though he's not knighted. Sir Phil Tippett tends to disagree with you on this one, so this is great. Okay, this one you've already answered. I was going to ask you, this famous English actor had a cameo in the film as a stormtrooper. Can you name the actor? But you already mentioned, and it is...
Daniel Craig. Hi-ho.
There you go. Okay, here's one. This Saturday Night Live alumnus provided some of the noises that were synthesized into becoming BB-8's voice. Can you name the actor from SNL who helped provide the sounds that would become BB-8's voice?
Bill Hader.
Very good. Yes, he's one of your favorite performers on the show. As we hear on them. Okay. As you know, and as everyone knows, each of the Star Wars films has opened up with the crawl, which of course sets the stage for the story, right? And the original film's crawl began with, it's a period of civil war. In The Force Awakens, what's the first sentence in the opening crawl?
I thought there wasn't a crawl. It starts with Rey. She's like scavenging and stuff, and it shows her like pulling something out.
Dude, it opens up with John Williams' score and the full screen Star Wars logo, which recedes into space, and the crawl starts. Episode 7, The Force Awakens, and it says Luke Skywalker has vanished.
You're right. Oh,
I'm very disappointed.
That is the first scene, though, but it is after the crawl.
I am very disappointed in you, young man. Okay.
Blasphemy.
Now, The Force Awakens is not available. This is a millennial question for you, okay? The Force Awakens is not available for streaming on Netflix in the United States of America. It is, however, available on Netflix in what country?
If you're going to say Canada, I'm going to be so upset.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's Canada. Another reason
really?
to love the Great White North. Yes, it's available. It would start in September. It started streaming here in Canada. It was available on Netflix. And one of the reasons...
How is that fair?
Because one of the reasons was it had to do with... It was like this legality thing that was going on. In the United States, I guess Disney had worked out a deal with Netflix saying that, hey, yeah, any movies that we make, you can stream. But that starts January 1st, 2016, and this film unfortunately was released in December 2015, and so they did not hold the rights for the streaming, and in Canada we could watch it. So I have watched it several times on Netflix, so I gotta say, unfortunately, for you guys, again, another reason why the Great White North is so great, I guess, right? So there you go. Anyway, time to wrap things up for another week. Yancy, hey man, thanks a lot. We could probably talk about The Force Awakens for 10 hours. Longer,
I'm definitely like wanting to talk about more stuff, but I know we have to go. This really sucks.
I know. We're always up against the clock on this show. So anyway, listen, thanks for listening to Pop Goes Your World, the pop culture podcast for the generations.
Thank you for listening to the Pop Goes Your World podcast. Continue the conversation on Twitter at @CMcBrien or at Yancy Eaton. Please consider leaving a review for the podcast on iTunes or wherever you download and listen to the show.